I was wondering, Mark, about a situation where, say, if you represent a business owner and the other business owner you find out is being investigated by the FBI and they're the wrongdoers. In that situation, what are the steps that you advise the innocent business owner to get their business back in compliance? Maybe with the IRS, maybe with whatever they need to do. I mean, because that sounds like a long road. And usually the way that we see it is that we see the front end of it, right? We see the FBI investigating, or was the SEC. But what are the things that they need to do on the back end to get their business back in shape so that they no longer run into these issues in the future?
Well, they've got to separate themselves from the wrongdoer as soon as possible, like yesterday. And, you can think about all these corporate niceties about what agreements say about who gets what votes and all of that. But if you're dealing with someone who's engaged in criminal conduct, you got to get rid of them.
Right.
And you got to get to the bottom of everything, financially and otherwise. And of course, you want to be distant from the repercussions as you can. So, for example, I've had cases where a partner in an enterprise is engaged in raising money unknown to the enterprise for purposes of an investment that turned out to be a Ponzi scheme.
Oh, my goodness.
So call it a mini Madoff. And that partner engaged in criminal conduct was soliciting clients of the company.
Oh, wow.
So you have this agency question of whether or not the company is responsible for all of the wrongdoing of this partner who is, who's gone off the deep end in terms of complying with the law. So, if you're slow to act in getting rid of the wrongdoer, how does that look when you get sued by the folks who are victimized by the Ponzi scheme? So, and issues do come up about, taking the information you acquire to the government.
Right, right.
And so here's another example of when you'd want to involve you as a criminal defense lawyer, even though you're a criminal defense lawyer, I've got a client needs to be protected from criminal prosecution and civil liability. So again, I want to work collaboratively with you to help the client, avoid as much of the repercussions of this bad actor as possible. So I've seen that come up. So you need both. You need the criminal advice and you need the civil advice in these situations. And, this also has, come up in a state case. I get hired by, say, the personal representatives of the estate, and I learn that there's some problem that could be viewed as civil and could also be viewed as criminal. And I, need to give advice to the client about what to do about it. And part of that analysis is, in terms of the criminal exposure, what should we do? What makes the most sense? And I've had cases where, criminal lawyers actually taken the case in to the government.
Oh, okay.
We became aware of this and we wanted you to know. There are circumstances that's happening. So I'm not a criminal lawyer, and I have no business giving criminal legal advice, but I need someone. Companies need someone who is a competent criminal attorney like you to help me guide the client through the process.
I think that's why collaboration is so important. But also, you were saying how removing the wrongdoer quickly is important. And I could see situations where if it's an executor of a trust or maybe a CEO that would require like a board to remove them, it could certainly take a lot longer than just firing someone, right? So that could really complicate matters.
Yeah. I mean, there's emergencies and there's real emergencies. And, but if you have a partner running a Ponzi scheme on the side, you've got to make it crystal clear to the world that you don't condone this. I mean, there's a lot of things that, of course, you need to. People are entitled to some kind of due process. So you'd have the board would hire somebody to conduct an independent investigation. But that independent investigation may take a month,
right?
2 months. So, I don't know how long the investigation of the governor of New York is going to take, but there is, that's an investigation that might involve, sexual assault. That's a crime. It also can give rise to civil liability, and that's aside from the political implications of all of it. But there are certain things that just can't wait. And so, I'd say you just don't have the luxury of letting someone engaged in a Ponzi scheme continue to be part of the firm while a investigation is going forth over the next month or two.
I mean, that's just incredible. So, Mark, how did they find out that was going on at the time? Was it one of the investors that came in and complained about it, or was it a whistleblower? Like, how that situation get revealed?
I think from I think someone going to the authorities and simultaneously notifying someone at the company, someone else at the company.
I see. And I'm sorry, go ahead.
But, there was no authority to be soliciting this investments. It wasn't an investment firm. So it was outside the business of the firm. And so it's conduct that shouldn't have been going on at all.
Oh, I was assuming when you first said that they were involved in at least some, 401k planning or something that.
No.
So it was completely.
So it doesn't. Wow. So in my mind, it doesn't matter.
Right, of course.
Due process, not due process. Once you know that someone has solicited money for a investment that nobody knows about,
right.
That's not acceptable.
Oh, absolutely. I just meant it from more a standpoint that I thought at least if it's an investment firm, it would make sense for people to more easily be defrauded, right? Because they're used to kind of giving that company money to invest. But wow, that's incredible that was even the area of business they were engaged in. It just blows my mind in terms of how that person got money from anyone. Wow, it's
I mean, at different times you hear about these mini Madoffs where they're they just happen, and people, a lot of times people who do this, they're very tied into the community and
I see.
Religious organizations, nonprofit organizations. They have, from all appearances, they're the salt of the earth, and they people trust them, and they come across like they know what they're doing, and they're typically very bright. And I remember when the Madoff thing came out, hearing about a psychologist, watching a psychologist on TV talk about the mindset of these people. And a lot of times the mindset is that they're just borrowing the money, and they're going to make it and they're going to pay it back until the very end, when they think they're going to get caught soon. And then it's just at the end, just outright theft of as much money as possible.
Right.
Isn't it very interesting to
it is interesting.
To watch this person talking about the psychology of people who defraud people out of their money. So, so the client, ended up with no criminal exposure, did have some claims, and of course we defended them all. And but again, the need for criminal lawyer and need for civil lawyer working together collaboratively is important. Other contexts in which I've seen fraud type issues come up is, I've represented banks from time to time, and they have fidelity bonds where for dishonest employees, because they can have access to money. So I've seen fraud in that context. And in one very unusual context, a president of the bank hired me to bring a lawsuit to recover money that the bank had been defaulted on. The bank was owed. And so my investigation revealed that the president had engaged in wrongdoing in connection with the loan.
I see.
So, I'm old enough, believe it or not, Jason, to remember the real estate crash between 1990 and 1992, where scores of banks went out of business because of all sorts of funky loans, secret second mortgage. In this particular case, the president's minor son had a 1/3 beneficial ownership of the entity and the borrower. So the president, the board of the directors, the chair of which was the president, made the smart decision to immediately fire the president, and the president went to jail.
Wow.
And so these situations come up. I'll call it the intersection of civil and criminal, and the need for business owners to be tuned in to when I bring in a criminal lawyer, it's not just because I'm trying to get a criminal lawyer involved. I have a little noise in the background. Sorry about that.
No problem at all.
This pandemic noise in the background.
So, yeah, that's great. I mean, that's some great information that you have given us today, Mark. What about you? Other than when people are trying to sue each other in terms of the business world, what's your favorite types of cases that people should be calling you about?
Well, I handle many disputes between co-owners, whether they're partners, shareholders, members of LLCs, limited partners, general partners, in the corporate world, in the real estate world, all types of businesses. Disputes arise between co-owners. I also represent companies in high stakes litigation that's important to the business, your business cases. So those are my sweet spot.
Well, perfect. Thank you for coming on today. We have your email and your phone. Certainly people will know how to reach out to you. And thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me, Jason. Nice to see you.
You also.